What up, people? What's good? Salute.
Yes, sir.
Yo, what's good, everybody? Salute to the tribe. We're hip hop and comics and hip hop. We're a niche channel. And reserved for the best is super dope. I do sell comics. Check me out on Instagram at @6th_element_comic. We do live auctions, live claim sales. I rock with Tooth and Claw, hit animated television series. The Scotty Young joint, blowing up fast. X-23. So this is dope, man. All right, so this is beautiful. All right, y'all. What's up, everybody? This is Sixth Element of Hip Hop. I am Reno Noir, your host. We're waiting on Stu Dog to join us, but we have a very special guest today, Lance Lucero. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Awesome. Creator of Bob, Non-Union Psychic, the Big Book of Bob, Volume 1, an amazing new comic that is just, it's something different, and I can't say anything else. It is phenomenal. It is a really great book. This is the cover, guys. It's two comics in this one book, right?
It's three.
Three issues? Okay. So it's Volume 1. It's like issue 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. Man, really good artwork in here. The writing is incredible. And you said something in the sort of the introduction. You said, I wanted to try something new, something different. I've been around long enough to be a bit jaded and tired of what's been circulating in the comic book world for many years now, and I did not want to remanufacture more of the same. It's hard to do if the market is completely saturated with the same story and character themes. Above all, I wanted to be interested in what I was creating. That's the real challenge. Talk to me about that. What was the motivation there?
Well, as you know, sometimes when you're around long enough, you get to see the same tropes, the same storylines, same character designs. And sometimes after a while, it can get a little stale, no matter how much you love a character. But even after 50, 90 years, sometimes I think things run their course. That's a heck of a haul. But, in this modern age now, I think that we are bombarded with just all of the same everywhere you look. It's the same logos, it's the same T-shirts, it's the same characters. And I love comics, but I just didn't want to do that. I don't want to remanufacture or be accepted to keep the train going, in a sense. It's like, I think there's so many unique stories out there. There's so many cool characters that can be created. It takes time and effort, but I think it's a heck of a lot more rewarding, because really, why bank off of somebody else's copywritten or licensed materials, or even work for that? It's like, to me, I don't find that fulfilling. I find searching within to create something new and original the biggest challenge. And avoiding a structure, samities, the stuff that we see over and over again, taking a completely different approach, artistically, story-wise, character-wise, and just let that world build. Let's expand upon it. Give the readers more. Don't insult their intelligence. Don't preach to them. Entertain, but kind of have a little bit of substance there. And page count, whatever. It doesn't have to be a standard issue size. Let's just tell the story, no matter how long it has to be or how short. Let's tell the story.
Right.
So, that's kind of what Bob's all about. Trying to stand on its own 2 feet and have great stories, great art at an independent level that can definitely rival, the big labels. To say, hey, indies can produce fantastic work. It's not low budget. It's not cheap. It can rival what's out there in the market.
Absolutely. We talk about it all the time on this show. Shout out Hood Rat. What's up, man? PA Hayden in the building. What's good, guys? We talk about it all the time. Indies, we even have a special show on Wednesday just about indies, indie hip hop and comics. This is hip hop and comics. Wednesday, we do indie hip hop and comics. And I'm going to actually have some of your I guess you call it label mates, or ASAP UK guys, and other creators, dog eaters and stuff like that. We're going to be talking to them. But yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time. Indies is where it's at for quality writing, a quality story. The really good stuff tends to be in the indies anymore, because like you said, the big two, the main ones, they do that cookie cutter, conveyor belt. It's just all a lot of the same, And this is definitely different. I mean, you've got Bob. He's a psychic, like, but he's for hire, but not. I don't know. It's great. There's a lot to it. I mean, what what where did you come up with? How did you come up with the idea for Bob, the non-union psychic?
Well, non-union is pretty much a metaphor. It could have been anything. It could have been, non-guild or non-team player or something.
Right.
It's something that I think people can be familiarized with. And it just goes back to, movie industry stuff. Way back in the day when, I made a feature film a long time ago. You're trying to break into the business, and the gatekeepers are there just to slam the door in your face. If you don't have the built-in brand, or if you don't have the built-in tropes, a lot of times you're not going to get seen. And I didn't want to play that game. So it's all about, what if you have the tools, the talent, the wherewithal to succeed, and you just went ahead and did it, without having to showboat to a gatekeeper. No, a gatekeeper can be a studio. It could be an agent. Yeah, it could be any of those things that you're forced to supposedly have to be accepted in any realm.
Right.
Doesn't matter. So that's kind of what I was hinting at, to say, hey, you know what? Bob's talented. He's a talented hairstylist. He's a very talented psychic. But there's the duality. He loves to cut hair, but on the same token, he's kind of being forced into an establishment where he can be more reputable as a psychic. But why, when you can stay indie and create your own brand in a sense? So those are the character elements that he struggles with. Family's involved. Family's always a big influence, good or bad. But the idea of also having a stable profession, we've seen it. He can't be a millionaire. He can't be a super genius. He can't be. Those tropes are too easy, because those allow for cheats in storytelling.
Yeah.
Bob's got to be he's got to be a small business owner. He's got to stand on his own 2 feet.
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of what keeps his character alive. He still has to go to his day job, even though he dabbles in the paranormal, which can ultimately kill him, but he can still go back to cutting hair, and he can cut hair anywhere in the world. So it's a profession that he's very good at, but at the same time, he's not limited. He has his own shop.
All he needs is his pair of scissors, and wherever he's at, he can work. He can do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, let me welcome my co-host Stu Dog in the building. What's good, brother?
How you doing?
Sorry,
Can
man.
you hear us, brother?
Been here 5 minutes ago. I can hear you loud and clear, man. I was just waiting for the technology to warm up. You know how it is.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a lag, man, warming up, man. That's it's going to kick out in a little bit, but give it a couple minutes.
Okay. All right, that's what's up. So yeah, what like the hairstylist thing? That's where I was gonna go. What made you choose that as his alter ego? Do you cut hair? I mean, is that something that you know about?
No, not at all. Actually, it was kind of mildly influenced by a hairstylist I used to go to decades ago. That was actually from the Navajo Nation. Dene. He knew how to cut my native hair, so I'd listen to his stories about certain spiritualities and what have you, which I thought happened to be fun. This is a guy that got off the res, and he started his own very successful hairstyling business in a very trendy area here in Denver. And it's one of those awesome success stories. But as far as a character goes, I started to think too. Once again, he can't have a bat cave. He can't have the Fortress of Solitude. He can't be infinitely backed dollar wise, because that just doesn't fly in a story, and that's not something people can relate to. So I'm thinking, well, I needed a profession, and I was just searching around for like what a mechanic, an auto mechanic. What can you do every day that you can pick up and go to in any city or any country? And I'm thinking, well, hair, style, no matter what, you want to look good. And he's that guy you go to, and that's just kind of what he tunes into artistically. That's his business, that's his artistic outlet. That's what he strives to do. And then there's the there's the flip side of it. He has to have contact with humans, and that could be detrimental because he doesn't want to see what's going on in their psychic world. But that's one of the price he has to pay in order to be to separate his two professions so that he can be successful. But yeah, it was tough for a minute searching for that right career path. And then it just struck me about, this hairstylist I knew. And I thought, well, that might be kind of cool. And I don't see that in anything. So it's like, why not try hair? You don't see your superhero being a hairstylist.
Yeah, no, very different.
No, that's
Very
that's
unique.
very different. Yeah,
Yeah, very
they're
unique.
usually something more. I don't know, man. They're usually something more manly. Not saying that being a
Heroic.
hairstylist is not manly, but
Right.
yeah, like something that you would find a man. Like you normally don't see a man being a nurse, but there are male nurses,
Right.
and you do have male hairstylists, but yeah,
Sure.
but to be a hairstylist and a superhero, that's different. That's dope. That's
Yeah,
dope.
absolutely. Absolutely. Stu, were you able to
Especially
get
if
the
he's a
digital?
successful hairstylist.
Right.
The
Right.
who?
And he's good. He's sought after. Did you get the email
I'm
with the
just now
comic?
getting my emails.
Yeah. All right. Because no, I
Yeah,
had
I
him
got it.
email you
I didn't get a chance to really.
a digital
Yeah, I didn't get
copy
a
of the
chance to
comic.
really go over it. Well,
Really
I'm
good.
definitely
I
gonna
mean,
read
it's
that
so
comic.
is
I'm definitely gonna
is
read that
Bob?
comic.
Oh yeah, you got to. I mean, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'm gonna keep it all the way 100. I was planning on just kind of skimming it for the interview, and I'm telling you, it hooked me like I read it. You know what I mean? Like I was gonna. It's that good. Like it
That's on
really. I
him,
was like,
man.
oh wait a minute, this is actually like
Lance, that's
I'm
on
into
him. I
this.
read everything.
I'm
Lance, I
into
read
that. No, I'm
everything. I
just
read the
gonna keep it
ingredients
on
on
it.
the
And the
cereal
reason
box.
I'm trying to keep it on it. But the reason is
Okay.
because this interview was last minute, like last 40, like an hour before we got it together. So there was no time. Like I didn't have time, and I'm trying to do 100 things. And so I'm like, okay, I got to scan this comic for the interview, and it's just it's so good. Like it's so good. Is Bob Native American?
I'm going to probably steer him in that direction. Yes, I
Yeah.
haven't openly capitalized on that, but considering like maybe regionally where he's from and his heightened sense of his environment,
Yeah.
I'm thinking there's I'm going to install an element of that. It's been there all along, but I have not really capitalized on it just yet.
Yeah, because and his grandfather is not traditional Native American,
Right.
obviously. So yeah, I
Oh, but
mean,
that's kind of dope though. That's kind of
no,
dope
I know
because
that's what I'm saying.
normally with Native, I've met a few like real Native Americans in my life. I've met about, I'll say 3 or 4 of them. Um,
Yeah,
and I mean, not, I mean, I know it sounds weird, but like you meet
no,
people and they be like, "Oh, I'm half Indian," or they'll be like, "Oh, I'm
yeah,
half Native
yeah.
American," or "I'm a quarter." But anybody, but I've actually literally
You're
met
talking about one
about
of the almost,
I say 3 to 4 people that are legitly 100% Native American,
yeah. I
and
mean, they were.
talk to
It's
them.
almost an extinct race. Like what the Europeans did
United
to the Native
States,
American
the United
country. I mean,
States. I'm not even gonna say we can't
yeah,
say
I'm not even gonna
Europeans.
say
It was the
European.
United
No, I'm not gonna
States.
say
Yeah, with the United
United
States.
States government.
The United
Sure,
States was fully
100%,
formed when they started to hunt down and try to.
100%.
There are documents that I've read when I was in the
Oh yeah,
military, um, where the prime goal of the American government at the time was to wipe the quote unquote how it was written. And it was written just like I'm saying it, to wipe the red man from the face of the earth.
yeah,
They wanted to do it because they wanted to the land that America was pretty much stolen from the American Indian. It really literally was.
100%,
And they didn't
100%.
want them here in order to say that, like, to stand up and say, hey, well, wait a minute, we was here first. They didn't want
Yeah,
that. So their solution to the problem was to get rid of them, period. point blank.
Genocide. I
Right.
lived for like 6 months on a reservation in Nebraska, Santee Reservation, with the Lakota
Okay.
people, and yeah, like we built the Sundance Arbor. We were there for the Sundance, the whole thing. I mean, which used to be an illegal ceremony that the government actually outlawed. They were not allowed to do this ceremony. Like they would watch. And right now to this day, you can see feds in the mountains, like around with binoculars. It's intense. Like it's crazy. It's no joke.
Yeah, and you know, Bob's designed to be kind of a not a breakout character in that sense, but I think it's important that historically we can go back and you know, it's like putting the historical elements, you know, within the book, and one of them being, you know, Legros, the scissors. You've seen his scissors, and then you see in episode 1, you actually get to meet the hairstylist, who was a guy that really existed. In the 1700s, a real hairstylist. He has his own school, his own book. He was in the French court. I mean, so this is something you can look up, and it's what we're expanding upon historically. You know, the book, we put these historic elements throughout the book, and I think a good way, especially in the Americas, is to tie it in through Native American culture, especially the region that he's in. We haven't really specified where Bob's city is. We just know it's a big city. It may be in the Four Corner area, like here in Denver. You know, we've kept that a little loose, but the story elements are astronomical when you start to deal with all that folklore. Yeah. And as you see, we get into you know, a book 2. We start to dabble in the Wendigo, you know, which you know, we kind of cross reference. Is it really spiritual, or is it really an alien? You know, we're not really sure. But these elements, the stories are all there, and the stories that I grew up with are extremely powerful. And there's too many to be told. But you know, Bob's a catalyst for that. Bob's to say, hey, look. We're writing a story here, but we don't have to be trite about it. There's going to be elements in there that might be fun. And historically, you can look them up and you'll be surprised how it's linked historically to certain time frames or people. So it's just adding that extra layer, you know, really working hard to say, hey, you know, let's give you something a little bit more than just words and colors on pages. Just, you know, maybe you can dabble in picking up something, an ulterior book to read. Maybe Bob influenced that, you know. That's kind of what we were going for.
Yeah, well, I have a couple questions to ask, but one I wanted to ask: tell us about Warehouse 9 Productions.
Warehouse 9 Productions is it's the banner I fly under. It's my corporation. It's my studio. It's film production and comic book creation. So, you know, that's what I initially, it was all about filmmaking. So I made a feature film a while back called Hunting for Fish, which I just secured distribution for.
Yes, you did.
And I have
very good film too.
And I've been in the festival circuit with short films right now, but everything here is shot on film. I'm not doing HD.
Nice.
8mm.
Nice.
Yeah, 8mm, 16mm. I mean, the scanning possibilities today are endless. It's fantastic what you can do with film.
Yes.
So once again, at the independent level, just like a Bob, it's about saying, hey, look, because I'm indie doesn't mean I have a lack of quality in what I'm doing, especially if it's not HD. Now, HD is a whole different animal. I'm not bashing HD. Do I think it's cinematic? Not really. I'm not bashing it. It has its place. But as far as cinema goes, I'm going to choose film because I think that captures my story and my art better than HD could ever do it.
What do you think about what Scorsese said about the Marvel movies not being cinema? I get his point, but do you agree? What do you think?
I agree with his point. Because I believe, the Marvel movies are, they're Saturday morning kid shows and they look that way.
They're entertainment, right? I mean, but then so is Star Wars. So, but
exactly.
Star Wars is cinema, though.
Star Wars, I still think they have that edge. I mean, one, they're shooting on film still. Now, film moves different than HD. Sure. It looks different than HD. It takes a little extra time to paint that beautiful picture with film than it does HD.
And now they're back
And
to using live puppets and things.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I
Lance,
think
I agree with you, Lance. When I watch, I mean, and not to cut you off, but I agree with you because when I watch a film or a movie, whatever you want to call it, because I know there's a difference between a movie and a film. I get that, but the way that it's shot to me is moving. I watched if you ever watched Mad Max the remake, now they have a color version, and the original director wanted it shot in black and white. He wanted the whole film, and the
Yeah.
studio told him no. And so he did a black and white version, and he did a color version. So I watched the color version. I went to the movies. I think I saw it. I saw it on my TV. But when the black and chrome came out and I watched it, I was so much more moved by the movie by watching it in black and white that I felt that they should have shot it like they should have just put it out like that to begin with. I
Well,
thought that
it's
would
the
have been
same with
better.
this one. Remember
you
Yeah,
know,
Logan?
Logan. Yeah, Logan,
I-
And they
same
did the
thing.
black and white. Yep, they got the
Yeah.
black and white.
and here's the funny thing about that. Actually, my mom, I don't know, she's a Hugh Jackman fan, Keanu Reeves fan, right? So
Mhm.
she got Logan, and I had seen it at the movie theater, and I knew it was shot on HD. You know, I'm like, okay, it's HD, and it's a comic book movie. And then she called me up and said, "Well, I got the Blu-ray, man. Did you get it?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't gotten it yet." And she's like, "Well, I didn't know it was shot in black and white." And I'm like, what's wrong with you? It wasn't shot in black and white. She's like, I just watched it. It was in black and white. So she got the disc that
Oh, she
had
got
both
the
discs
DVD.
in there.
Yeah,
And she
Put
didn't
the wrong
know.
one in?
Right. And I was like, all right, I got to see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I looked at it. Now
It
photographically,
is better.
well,
thought it
black
was
and
better.
white has an effect on you visually. Psychologically, that's why I was shooting my last two short films in black and white. It doesn't matter if it's a comedy or a drama. Black and white has that element. If shot correctly, you pay attention to your subject matter a little bit more. You pay attention to your actor a little bit more, because in a sense, color is great. I'm shooting something new on color, but I think you are a little bit more enraptured because there's a little less distraction with maybe the red rose in the background, or the big blue sky, or there's something that's more personal and just a little bit more cinematic. But having said that, there is an extreme difference between HD black and white and film black and white, texture-wise.
Yes, there is.
Right.
So he's right.
You cannot deny the fact that HD black and white, there's not a lot of separation in the blacks. Now there's going to be there's a few people that may disagree with me, but I can prove them wrong, because if I scan a film and I have shadows in the background, if I light it correctly, I can pull image out of my background and it'll look great. Whereas HD, it just falls into blackness or muddiness. It's not there.
Yes.
You just don't see it.
Yeah.
And if you're a paying customer and you're going to see a movie, I feel a little robbed when I see an image that's muddy, that looks gray. It looks like there's a milk in front of it. It's filmy.
Yeah.
It has like a film in front of it. And it's like, no, that's not the way, HD is shiny. It's a little plastic looking. It's unforgiving for its performers. And no matter how you contrast it, no matter what you do, you can make it look pretty decent, but there are those that are trying to fake it to look like film, and you just can't fake it. You cannot do that. It's you just can't do it. So there's no point in doing it. So, some of the debates I have with people is that, well, why am I shooting film? I said, because it's cinematic. I don't want to do it any other way. My subject matter is not going to look good on HD. And then I've heard somebody say, well, you're missing the point. HD's faster and easier. Okay, so what?
Right. Who's that benefit?
Right. We're going for the effect. You're going for the effect, and you want to move your audience with your film rather than give them.
And like you said, you're cheating the audience in that way. You're trying to get faster, easier. But
yeah,
because I've seen movies. Yeah, I like movies. I'm gonna be honest with you. I love HD. Got nothing against it personally, whatever. But you show me a movie that somebody filmed in 8mm, I love it. I think it has more of a gritty feel. It makes you. It's like it's there, like you're there. Like to me, like when I watch this movie filmed in 8mm, it just like it's like you're there, or like it just seems more real to me. Like I've watched movies where they had them in 8mm. I was like, wow, that was like powerful. Like I get it. Like I do. And
Can you
you
give a
know,
movie
so
example where
H8.
you?
Go ahead. Yeah, can you give a movie example when you've seen Milky Shadows?
The new Dune.
Okay, I did. I just
Easy.
watched that too.
That's easy, you know. But there's a cheat with the new Dune that I had been looking into because I heard it was shot on film, but I'm like, no, they use the Arri, like the Arri Alexa LT or something. I said that's a digital camera. That's a high format camera for like IMAX imagery, and
Mm.
and I'm like, that's not true. So what they did is they shot it on HD, and then they pressed it to film, and then they
Right.
rescanned the film. But I'm like, well, no, that's not shooting on film
No,
because you can't get
that's
like
converting to film once you shot it on HD. You shot it on what you shoot it on. That's what it is, right?
right, and the background. You know, if you have dark backgrounds and you have dark costumings, you don't get that separation. It just is black sometimes. You know, it's like there's nothing there, and it's particularly hazardous when you're filtering black and white on HD. Now, you're not photographing when you're doing HD in black and white. You're just putting a filter on it in post-production. So you got to have, I'm like, well, wait a second. You have costumes. Certain colors look better in black and white. It may look weird in color, but that's why you costume that way. Makeup looks different. Whatever filters you're using on the spot look different. You know, the list goes on too with the muddiness in a lot of HD imagery. And the biggest culprit, I'll say it, is compression. So, you know, you go get your Blu-ray, it's going to look a lot better. You're going to start compressing that file. It's the killer of all formats. You start compressing your information to a little bit, an MP4.
Right.
HD looks pretty bad when it's compressed that far. You know how you see the pixelizations and the staggering.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
you know what? Film doesn't do that because the information is analog. It's physical. It's there.
Right.
So
it's like motion blur and stuff. Like what?
You got to turn that off.
Yeah, it's garbage. It's garbage. I don't know what why people want that.
I think it goes back to the gaming. You know, that 60 frames per second in gaming to get rid of the motion blur, and then they try to translate that to movies, and you don't want your movies or cinema to look like a video game. Video games are video games. Movies are movies.
Right, and now they've got a thing where they do it. It's something they do. I guess it's the frame rate or something. But I've like watched Avengers and stuff like that in this effect, and it literally makes it look like a video game. You see Iron Man, and he's total CGI, and you can tell, and it looks like a video game.
Right,
and that's a feature that you can do to these HD movies. I mean, most people don't know any of this stuff. You know.
A lot of them don't, but I get the questions of, well, I just watched this movie. Why did it look like that? You know, they'll ask me, and I'll say, well, you know, one, that it's HD, it's shot on video. Two, it could be a frame rate issue. I've walked into people's houses and with my Blu-ray and like say The Last Resort, black and white cowboy flick, and put it on a TV, and the motion smoothing was not turned off. And the noise reduction wasn't turned off. And I stopped it halfway through and said, I need to adjust your television. Have you had it on this setting? Oh, yeah, we just bought it off the showroom and just set it up and just started watching movies. I'm like, movies don't look like this, especially movies shot on film. You can't have it on this setting. So I recommended they turn it off. I turned it off. And then they were like, wow, that's a lot easier on my eyes. It doesn't look weird. It doesn't have that weird 3D look. I'm like, they're trying to push old movies, you know, 60 frames per second. What was that movie? Gemini Man? The one with
Will Smith.
The
twin was.
Yeah, and they tried to do they did the 60 frames per second, and it was like, wow, that, you know, it started to give me a headache. It was like I can't watch this.
Yeah.
But that's the way it was shot, I believe.
Right.
So, but people understand they're old movies. They're like, well, why doesn't the Avengers look like, you know, the old Superman movies, or why doesn't?
Right.
And I'm like, it's film versus HD.
Film. Yeah, 100%.
And the lenses.
Like Tarantino will still.
Yeah, the lenses too. Yeah.
The lenses. Tarantino uses the wide film, you know, the wide lenses with the film and all of that. Like, he won't shoot it, HD.
Anamorphically squeezed lenses, are fantastic for film. And when you look at like the new Dune, all they did is cut the top and the bottom off of it to get it 229 wide screen.
Letterbox.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's not an anamorphically squeezed lens, because the anamorphically squeezed lens, like Star Wars, all the movies we grew up and love, it creates a different depth of field, and it's cinematic. You don't know why it's cinematic, but because of that depth of field and how they light it and where the subject matter is placed, it's like a painting. It just looks otherworldly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So now, being in the film festival circuit and such, I've started to see a lot of, I'm not going to say young filmmakers, I'm going to say new movie makers shooting their movies with the aspect ratio of 2:9. They're just cropping it off, and it's extremely wide. And I'm like, you have two people sitting in a room talking. Why are you doing that?
Right, like a big wide lens, right?
Yeah, it's like there's no point in that. And while I wanted it to look cinematic, well, you got an intimate scene there. It should be, 16:9 or 1:8.5. You got two people that are intimate.
Shoot a landscape or something.
Yeah, I'm like, why? But a lot of people are doing this today because I think they're struggling really hard to be like film, but they just don't want to. They're afraid of it. Bottom line, a lot of people are afraid to shoot film.
Yeah, well, it's expensive. You don't get to really redo it. I mean, you can't rewind a tape over it. You know what I mean? Like it is scary because you mess up that film, you just wasted all that money. I mean, it's a lot, so I get it, especially for young, like you said, new filmmakers without maybe a big budget. Film is a lot of the budget, right?
Not anymore, to believe it or not. I mean, the biggest misconception is the price and processing of film.
Yeah. I always thought it was.
I've seen HD movies. Look, I made a period piece Western on location in the Great American West, and I've seen HD movies cost 10 times more than what I've done, and it could be just a basic slasher zombie movie.
Right.
And it also depends on the camera. There are times where people are renting or buying the red camera you're paying a lot of money to rent these cameras, insure the lenses. I mean, all your money can go into just that HD camera. And shooting 8K or 12K, nobody's ever going to see that.
Not for years, right?
Yeah. There's the human eye, people will argue, but
they argue, that you can't see 8K,
No, about 4K, 2Ks, we're good. We're good.
Right.
Yeah. So I understand the novelty of it, but I think there's a severe misdirection in the industry to push people to it, because I believe, in a sense, you have a camera that's so unforgiving. You need to light it properly, and people aren't lighting. We'll fix it in post. They're not throwing a key light. They're not pulling out light meters.
Right.
The idea of cinema is you're photographing something. It's a chemical process,
right?
And you take the time to photograph. You just don't throw up a video camera. Yeah,
right. Got to be a certain time of day and all of that. Like everything has to be just so to get that shot, because it's photography is what it is. So that's the difference. I think that's the definition of cinema then.
Right now, Lance, would you ever consider, because it happens every now and then, moving your comic book to the cinematic universe?
I'll let you in on it. We're doing it now.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. The latest film I'm working on now, called Coiffier Extraordinaire, Waiting for Legros. It's actually a spin-off of the Bob comic book. So I just mentioned Legros from 200 years ago. Right. We're telling a 10-minute story about him fighting an evil wig in a castle. And we just finished the special effects yesterday. This has been a 2-year ordeal, almost a 2-year ordeal, because we had to build miniatures, puppets, paper cutouts. We're doing all this like Jim Henson. We're doing all this old school Star
Michel
Wars.
Gondry type stuff.
Say again?
Michel Gondry, you know who that is?
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. We're doing everything everything is live action. We do have green screen, but here's the funny thing. My special effects artist at one point was like, well, we can create digital backgrounds. If you're going to green screen, I said, well, no, I want to rephotograph the backgrounds, because you cannot, the film stocks that I'm using, the lenses that the camera that I'm using, all your assets have to be filmed up front. So I have to film everything and then layer it, combine it, so that the grain structure matches and the colors.
Okay.
We did a couple of experiments digitally, and and right when I showed my special effects guy, he was like, yeah, you're right. We can't do it this way. It's got to all be film assets. I said, it does. So it's going to be fun, man. We got this old French dude with his magical scissors, fighting a gigantic wig that's gone crazy in a castle in France.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I was into filmmaking all through high school and college, film production classes and all of that, film school and all of that. I went that route, but I ended up getting into web design and changed fields. But back to the historical aspect, am I correct? Is the Hux medallion, that's something that I know I've heard before, right? Or did you make this up?
I made it up.
Okay. It sounds really official. Like, it sounds like something like the Hope Diamond or so. I could have sworn I had heard of the Hux medallion. So it's okay. So is that ancient Egypt that it's from, or what? Because I see this scene where the kid's holding it up and he's got like this skirt on and the sword, like it's like Egypt or something.
I didn't specify it. I'm thinking it's probably more Nepalese, maybe Nepal, ancient, maybe even Vietnam.
Okay.
And the Hux itself is interdimensional. It's a dimensional thing versus like our universe. So, these guys, I mean, when you look at ancient cultures, Mayan, Vietnam, Egypt, I mean, the list goes on. There's always that underlying element of, did they advance because of alien technology? I think we're selling humanity short. I think humanity's pretty smart, but that's fun stuff to deal in. It's just fun story stuff.
It really is. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah,
it is. I
absolutely.
agree.
So I like.
Now,
do you think one scene where he said, because we, hip hop and comics is our thing. I love the part where you said the medallion. He was like, it's kind of like a Flavor Flav look. Because it's like the big clock.
Only it's the clock you don't want stuck in your chest.
Right. Now, being that you have a Native American at the center of the story, when they write African Americans into comic books and things of that nature, they're usually in like their neighborhood dealing with the issues that goes on in African American communities or whatsoever. Do you see that type of role for Bob and everything he's got going on? Like, will the setting, like, is the set, like, will he go to like a Native American community and help them with their problems, or just be addressing some issues that they have in the community?
It's on the horizon. It's on the horizon.
Okay.
We have three other issues written, and we also have a spin-off of that, which is going to be the Maya Theater Troupe. So we have Chief Big Brow, which is in these books, and he's going to be a centralized character for that. So that's a way that I can mix more of what I know about my Native American history into a modern storytelling. Kind of really flesh out the stories and put them in a modern setting. At the same time, go back in time a little bit. So I mean, the stories are fantastic. Growing up with some great stories. It compels you. It's like, wow, but it's an oral tradition. It's a lot of it's not written down.
Right. Not right.
And I'm kind of like, well, I want to write some of this down. I think they're just like ancient Greece, just like, the mythology. There's so many cool things that we can do. And I'm going to do my best to capitalize on that.
Nice.
Okay. Do you see a video game coming for this anytime in the future?
Somebody suggested that. I didn't know how to handle it just yet, but Bob with his scissors fighting, something simple.
Listen, we've had it. Listen. Yeah. We've had it. I mean, Kratos has got 2 swords. Ratchet and Clank's got a big hammer.
Yeah, there's lots of different tools.
I mean, listen, there are games where characters have scissors and they running around.
Yeah, the golden scissors, man.
Yeah, you got Unravel, which is a guy made out of yarn, and as he's walking, he leaves it. Yeah. So I mean,
Good
come on,
game.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a second part. That's how good it was. So
Yep.
That,
Unravel.
that's
Yep.
that's it's something that we've been toying with. I'm not exactly sure how to approach it yet, but I think it could be really fun. I think it can be.
Absolutely.
listen, we would
I
buy
would
it and
play
we
it.
would play it.
Yeah, I would buy it for sure.
We would buy
For
it, we'd
sure.
play it. Yeah.
What
Yeah, definitely.
when did you start? When did you get into comic? I mean, have you always been into comics, or was this something you just decided what medium can I use and you chose comics? Or are you a collector or what?
I'd been into comics since probably the '70s. Influenced by my older brother, so I got to see. I was lucky enough to see the early, Frank Miller stuff
Right.
as a kid, and go, okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. And then we lean into the '80s. I was a Batman fan, a pretty big Batman fan, Detective Comics. Brayfogle, Aparo. Um, there was a lot there for me, and visually it captured me, and so did it story wise.
Right.
I mean, it was a great time. The '80s was a great time for comic books.
Oh yeah.
Oh God,
So
yes.
the influences are there, and I could see how it can be cinematic if done the right way.
Mhm.
But yeah, I collected for a while. I read a lot. I leaned a lot towards DC mostly, but then I liked a lot of the indies like Lloyd Llewellyn or Madman. I liked Flaming Carrot, Mystery Men.
Okay.
Just that off the wall stuff was just like, wow. That's when I started to really think there's some really cool stuff out there if you dig deep.
Oh
There's
yeah.
some
Oh,
fun
yeah.
stuff. So it goes way back to when I was a kid.
Have you heard of
Okay.
cartoonist kayfabe?
I have not.
It's a YouTube channel, cartoonist kayfabe by Ed Piskor. He's the guy that made Hip Hop Family Tree, did X-Men Genesis. We had him on the show. Did an interview with him and stuff. But check that YouTube channel out because every episode they go over some really like obscure but really good comic or some really like just something that you never would have thought of. Just some really really unique stuff. I think you really dig it.
Cool.
Definitely
I'll look it
shout out
up.
to Ed. What when did you do this? When did you start to do Bob?
Well, Bob is, it's 2000. I wrote the screenplay.
Wow.
So it started off as a feature film,
Okay.
and it actually got on the table at a couple places, but ultimately, it was too wild and a little too expensive for a lot of people's tastes. And I was really young at the time, so there were three
Right.
strikes against me there.
Right.
So I let it sit for a while. I kind of fell off the map with artistically for a few years, and then a buddy of mine, Adam Voley, co-writer, editor of Bob. I met him when he was really young, and he was the ultimate comic book guy. He was actually producing some stuff that was, I think, a Shooting Star Comics. He was first published at 19. He had a really radical story he wrote. I met him, and we kind of clicked, and we ended up writing a screenplay together, which circulated but didn't get anywhere. And then about, I guess 6 years ago, we reconnected, and I was like, hey, what if we did a comic book? What if we need to do something? We've had work done, but we've never had anything out to the world.
Right.
So he had a couple ideas, and then ultimately I said, I got this screenplay, Bob Non-Union Psychic, check it out. And I sent it to him, and he was like, this is the one we have to do. He goes, we have to do this. This is radical. And him having the comic book knowledge and me the cinematic knowledge, we combined forces, and we were able to produce Bob Zero, this introduction book, which is basically the screenplay in a nutshell. We condensed it down to that 30 pages and made it as radical as possible. It's like, well, do you think anybody's going to like it? And he was like, in the comic book world, I think this is what's needed. All right. So we went for it, and now we're here with the Big Book of Bob. So I mean, literally, this is like a 21-year process.
Yeah.
It's a marathon. I tell people, don't give up. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a marathon.
Sure. Man, and it is. Who did the art?
Francisco Resendez.
Big shout out to Francisco, man, because this is a stunning book. Like, it's visually stunning. It's like you said, cinematic. The way the story is told, it's almost like you feel like you're watching the animated, like a cartoon. It jumps off the page. I mean, I'm nobody, but I see this thing blowing up, man. This is a really good book.
Thanks. I hope so. You know,
Me
we
too.
worked hard on it. We worked really hard on it,
You
and
can tell.
Francisco was a great find. He was a great find.
For sure, for
Okay.
sure. 'Cause yeah, really great. Stu, did you open it? Did we able to download it yet?
Yeah, I got it. I got it coming now. I'm gonna
Okay.
check it out in a second.
Yeah, you got to see
Can you
it.
tell us about Can you tell us about Waiting for Legros too?
Um, well, I did experimental films, two of them on Super 8. You know, we were just testing out a camera, so we did Waiting for Legros, which is on. You can go to warehouse9pro.com and it'll shoot you over to my Vimeo page, and you'll see the 60-second movie. And what it resulted in is the costume making and what have you. My girl, she's a costume maker, so we actually created the Legros and Marie Antoinette costumes for like Halloween, but they're extremely elaborate. They're very customized. And I thought, well, I got this new little Super 8 camera. Let's just do some test footage. So we did something called Waiting for Legros, which is a take on, Waiting for Godot. And it was the idea of her waiting for her hairstylist. It was just for fun. We didn't know it would catch on. And then we did the sequel,
But it
Waiting
did.
for.
Right.
It
But
did.
Yeah, you did. You did a part. You did two, right? Waiting for Legros too, right?
Yeah, the Eye of the Tiger.
I have the tiger.
So,
Right?
so that's Rocky 3, but with two queens in their outfit. That's the parody.
Right.
And then while we were doing that, I was like, okay, we need to take this farther. I think we actually need to actually produce it. So here's the thing, dealing with the cinematic universe. A lot of people were like, well, why didn't you just do Bob? Why didn't you do a Bob movie?
Right.
And I thought, well, let's not, in a sense, blow our wad so quick. Let's kind of just do something that's a spin-off, but it's a tie into the comic book. But
Right.
let's just go all out flair. The
Right.
costumes, the wigs. We need to go nuts on this. So that's what we decided to do, and we've generated a lot of interest. So when we were in Las Vegas in the summer for a film festival, we had the costumes on. And everybody lit up going, is this the movie that you're showing right now? We're like, no, we're actually showing a Western and a
Right.
cop film. And they were like, well, what is all this? We're like, you'll
Hey.
see next year. We're working
Oh,
on this
wow.
one right now.
That's
So
cool.
it's really fun. We've got some great performers. Everything was shot here at Warehouse 9, basically my house, my basement. We converted a whole section of it into a castle doorway with paper and and curtains. I mean, it's cinema, man, and
Yeah.
that's what I need to tell people. It's cinema, but remember, it's not real. It's fake. It's make believe.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we're here. We're here to get your take on it, and we just want to know about the process and everything you do, because the comic is dope, of course, and you've done quite a few things. What about the Unmentionables?
Oh, the Unmentionables was
Yeah.
I don't. We pulled that together so fast. It's still amazing to me. We were already shooting Coiffure Extraordinaire, and my buddy Vincent Olin, who plays one of the lead cops in that, Dominic. We were just thinking old school, Beretta, all Mannix, all those old Rockford Files, all those really cool old '80s cop shows, and we were relating pretty good on it. And I thought, well, maybe I can come up with something fun, 10 minutes. So what I've been doing is what's called a one reel, 10 to 12 minute movies, because that's how big a 400-foot roll of 16 millimeter film is. It's only one reel. Wow. And in the old days, they used to call them, like, if you watched a short movie or something, you get a one reel. Remember, I may be dating myself, but in the old days, they would put the 16 millimeter film on a projector. You watched a 10-minute movie, kind of like a cartoon, like a Looney Tune cartoon. It was only one reel. That's all you got.
Okay.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, well, attention spans today are pretty bad.
Yeah.
If I can get somebody for 10 minutes, I got this. So we expanded on that with the Unmentionables, just two no-nonsense cops that get the job done. And they got their nose in filth, but they get the job done in a humorous way. That's what we wanted to do. And that's when we now went back to shooting on 16 millimeter, you know, with brand new film stocks using newer LED lights. And the image is amazing. I mean, I'm very pleased about how it turned out. I photographed it. I was a little nervous at first, but, you know, being in old gangster restaurants, you know, and warehouses, being in car garages, you know, just the texture of black and white.
Sounds like my student film. That's what we did. We did a black and white gangster movie. We shot it in this downtown, this old 1920s like bar. They had it set up with all like 1920s furniture and everything. And we did the whole pinstripe suit gangster thing. It was really cool. A lot of fun. I mean, best time of my life.
Yeah, man. Don't give up on it, because I mean, it's a high I can't do without. You know, when you're
for real. I mean, I would never be as fulfilled in life if I wasn't making films like as I would be if I was making films. It's just once you get a taste of it, I mean, yeah, it's all.
It's very addicting.
100%.
It's harmless. I mean, I think it's a route to go, especially with newer movie makers today, to say don't give up on film. It's the king format. Most of the movies you love in your life are from film anyway. So don't make it till you make it. Just try to be it.
Just try to be it. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantasyland, epic tale, 2 nights. Explain that to us.
That goes back. Wow, I was really young. That goes back to like 26 years ago. So
that's what we're here to do. We're here to do that. We're here to take you back.
You're taking me back. So, you know, in the early 80s or late 80s, early 90s, I did a lot of video, because, you know, I didn't have access to the 8 millimeter cameras like I do today.
Right.
Unfortunately. So I was doing video, and just like Wayne's World, I was in Colorado. I was kind of the king of public access television. I was on public access, and before YouTube, you were a superstar. You were on public access in your own town. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yes, sir.
Your movies.
Yes,
so, I did that, and then I moved out to LA, 91, 92, to check out the scene. I just turned 21, so now you could do the math how old I am, but
27.
You know, yeah, that's right. 28,
28. Right, I guess 27, 28. Okay.
Yeah. And it was funny because we moved out to LA, lived in North Hollywood, because I just wanted to check out the scene. You know, I'm like, okay, what are my options as a kid from the Four Corner area? You know, what can I do to break into the business? I made a whole bunch of these little short movies, and one in particular called Looney Boy, which is still trapped on videotape. I had a little character generator that I hooked up to the VCRs, you know, Super VHS, and I flipped a filter on it, put it in black and white, because we talked about focusing on your character in black and white. I added some contrast to it. You know, it didn't really look like film. I was faking it.
Right.
And I managed to get it on the table at Tim Burton Productions.
Oh, wow.
I mean, this is the day where you can call up a studio or something at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 8 o'clock in the morning and say, can I speak to so-and-so? Oh yeah, hold on a second. You know, I mean, it was a whole different time.
Yeah.
And they screened my movie, not Tim Burton. He was on vacation for a year in New York, but his team screened it, and they were like, you know what, this is pretty cool, but what do you really want from us? And I'm like, right. I just went in on the set, man. I'll serve coffee. I don't care. Just give me on the set.
I said the same thing. I said, I'll sweep up anything just to be on the set. Exactly. I'll serve donuts. What do you want me to do?
Exactly what you said. I was like, I need to get in somewhere.
Yeah.
And the person told me, well, you know what? You really shouldn't be doing that. You should be making a film. But don't do it here. Don't do it in Los Angeles. It'll ruin you.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, interesting take. You know,
York, right? Orlando, what?
Yeah, they asked about the infrastructure. She's like, well, your infrastructure, you're from Colorado? I said, yeah. She goes, what's the film infrastructure there? I said, well, at that time, well, yeah, we have a processing lab. We have a film rental outlet. We have studios. They're shooting Perry Mason, Father Dowling out here. I mean, there was an infrastructure out here.
Yeah.
But for some reason, there's no way I could get into that infrastructure in my hometown. I couldn't get in. So I
What,
thought, well,
gatekeepers?
gatekeepers. And I thought,
Get out.
okay. And I was the public access kid. I'm like, no, my stuff is being circulated on PBS channel 12. You know, I'm kind of, I can do something if I'm helped. I
Right,
couldn't.
right.
Nobody wanted to help me out. So I said, all right, I'll go where the big dogs are. I'm going to go to LA and see what I can do.
Yeah.
So I went out to LA, and that was one experience where she said that contact was like, you know, we need to know that you can shoot on film because this is on video, right? I said, yeah, it is. She and there was a definite line drawn in the sand in the old days. You're a videographer or you're a filmmaker. You're not, you're not both.
Right.
There was a line in the sand. So
Right.
she said, we need to know that you can shoot sync sound and work with color correction.
Right.
Work with a budget. We need to know you have a good shooting ratio. I probably learned more in 3 conversations with this contact than I would have if I went to film school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I took it to heart. All right. And then I started talking to other people in the industry. Jerry Taylor, executive producer from Star Trek Next Generation. And I wanted to get on the writers training program, but that was the last season of Star Trek. But I knew about this new one, this Deep Space Nine that might be popping up. You know, and I was like,
that's Stu's stuff right there.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a point. He's got a point. Well, you know, Deep Space Nine was supposed to be a flop. They literally thought it was going to be a flop, and it's a little known secret. It was actually the most popular series Star Trek ever did, because of its diversity, I think. You know, but that's why you don't see a lot of merchandise. You'll see merchandise for every other Star Trek genre except for Deep Space Nine. So if you all you guys out here watching, you ever find any type of merchandise for the Deep Space Nine genre, collect it, keep it. It's worth a lot of money because they didn't make a lot of it.
What do you mean by diversity? Because like Star Trek was always kind of diverse.
Well, it was very diverse because they weren't on a starship. Number one. Number two, they were in deep space. Number three, they were nowhere near Starfleet. 4, you had an African American captain, and that had never happened before.
Right.
Usually, people of color or minority stature played lower level crew members on Star Trek.
Yeah.
The captains were always, white males, heterosexual, except for Captain Kirk. He was probably pansexual. I don't know. But Kirk got around. Kirk got around. And they were normally the dominating factors on the show. Nichelle Nichols was the first African American on there, and they had the first interracial kiss on Star Trek.
Right.
I watched an interview where she actually said that she was going to quit the show because she thought her role was so minute, and she didn't like the way she was treated. And at that time,
Uhura, right?
Yep.
Yes, Uhura. Yep. Female actresses have always gotten paid less money than their male constituents, and in Hollywood, that's just a thing. That's just what they do. They pay the women less. She was going to quit, and she said who talked her into it to staying was Dr. Martin Luther King. She said she met him. She didn't know he was a Star Trek fan, and he told her, he said, "I love watching you on Star Trek." And she said, "Well, I think I'm going to quit. That's just not, He was like, "No." He was like, "Because there's no other minorities on the show, so you got to stay. You got to stay just for that reason, for no other reason but that."
We had Sulu, right? We had Sulu.
Sulu was what? He was Japanese.
Yeah.
Chekhov was Russian.
Right.
Scotty was, of course, Scottish.
Right.
But when you got to Deep Space
all white, except for Sulu.
They're all
right?
white. They're all white males.
It was Sulu and Uhura.
And
Yeah.
Uhura. Right. Now, even if you saw other Star, now look, in Star Trek, you got to remember, you're living in a society that's woke. So, like, we've been through 3 world wars. We've seen aliens. They just stepped out of a spaceship and said hi to us after the 3rd World War. The guy that built the warp drive that attracted the aliens built it because he wanted to make money. And he attracted some
Where
aliens.
is all that mythology? Because
What,
that's
Star Trek?
Yeah, like I want to know all that stuff. That's not in the show.
Yeah, that's in the show. I mean, it's not in the show, but they talk. Whenever you hear them talk about Zephyr Cochrane, that's who ushered in their new era. And so, long story short, we're in a society where you should have more minority captains and things of that nature. But when you watch the original show, every captain they ever came across, They were white males.
Right.
They didn't
Add
show
more
any African American, American Indian, Chinese, Japanese. I don't care what you Australia. They didn't show anything else but white European males as captains. That's all you saw
Yeah.
until Deep Space Nine jumped on the scene. Captain Benjamin Sisko was captain. He started out, and that blew everybody away. They thought it was going to be a flop, but it wound up going 7 seasons and being one of the best, most popular shows that they ever had. And they wanted movies, but they never got movies. They never got a Deep Space Nine movie. And the way the movie it was shot and everything, they like you said about going digital. I think like halfway through the show they went digital with with the ships and everything, because everything after they were made. They made like
they were models.
Yeah, they were models.
Oh wow.
They were models. Yeah. And somebody actually stole I think it was the model or the Defiant or one of those. It was a ship on there. It was real popular. I forget what it was. I read it in the magazine, and they were saying that somebody I don't know who, somebody stole one of the models, and they never could find it. The original model, so they had to build another one. Yeah.
And it's kind of funny to expand on that alone. The Star Trek production infrastructure was kind of designed to be a little bit more inclusive. I mean, Jerry Taylor was an executive producer forever on Generation. She's a female. That was still pretty unheard of until you go back to maybe Lucille Ball. But having said that, you did not have to be represented by an agent to be a writer on Star Trek back in the day, even if it was Generations or Deep Space Nine. They weren't the gatekeepers like most studios were. They looked for fandom. They looked for outside sources for writing opportunities.
Yes, they did. Yeah, that's true.
And I knew this.
That's 100% true. Yeah.
That's why I contacted them, because they had a program, the Writers Trainee Program, where you can actually, if you qualify, I don't know what you had to write something to qualify. I don't know what it was yet, but it had already seen its course. I got there a little too late for that. But she was another person that said to me, don't make your film in Los Angeles. Go back to your infrastructure and make your film. Don't make it here. It's going to ruin you. And I said, all right.
What do you mean by that? What do they mean specifically?
It's going to move. Yeah. Explain that to us. Yeah.
Well, the gatekeeping in Los Angeles is pretty bad. And now you also got to contend with the unions, the guilds. Maybe if you want to be in the screenwriting guild, you can't be in the producers guild at the same time, because that's conflict of interest and blah blah blah. But it's like, well, if I write, produce, direct, edit, you're telling me I can't do that? I can only do one to qualify to be in a guild? I mean, there's a couple ways you can go. Let's say you go to film school, you make contacts, you're in that infrastructure, you get into the Hollywood system, and you start off as an apprentice. Let's say you want to edit films or something, and maybe in 10 years you'll be able to do that. You know what I mean? Versus having the knowledge to say, well, what if I make my film now and then just try to get it to a distributor? Right. It could take just as long, and I'm a perfect example of that. I've known guys that have gone up through the system and it's taken them 20 years, but I'm like, dude, I made my movie 20 years ago. I just had to rescan it and bring it up to speed to get it to the current market. Right. So, I mean, it's one of those things of, that's why I went to LA to get into the movie business, but it's LA that said, don't do it here, do it somewhere else. And there were problems. We've heard of the writer strikes, the producer strikes, all that happened like 5 years later, So I'm like, all right, I just need to make my film. So Fantasyland was me saying, here's my calling card. I'm going to make 2 nights fighting over a fair maiden outside in Colorado. Nobody's going to know it's not Great Britain. No one's going to know any of that. I'm going to make this film on, Super 16. I'm going to be a real filmmaker. And I did it. It got into one festival, but what I used it more specifically is to say, I'm going to make a feature film, which I did the next year. And I used that as a calling card. I showed that to everybody in an interview process. This is what I did one day. Now I'm going to do a feature film, a modern day cowboy movie, which is gonna blow everybody's socks off. That's what you hope.
Right.
I was doing that at the same time Christopher Nolan was doing the following. I was doing it at the same time Brothers McMullen was out. I was doing it when all these indie greats were happening, East Coast, New York. But there was really nothing happening here. And I thought, well, if I can do this cool little action flick and get it out to the world, it may be something.
Yeah.
And, it didn't happen until maybe I got the distributor barely a year ago. You know what I mean? It's just a process, man, and you can't give up.
And so are you leading more towards being a filmmaker or a comic book writer?
I'd say it's twofold.
You feel you can do both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I think production-wise you can actually really split up economically. You know, I mean, you do everything at your computer for a comic book. It's not a problem.
Right.
Right.
And then I can step away and do films.
Right.
Okay. Hunting for fish. One man has a fortune in diamonds, and everybody wants it. How'd you come up with that idea?
I mean, I went back to old cinema. You know, I was looking at movies like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, 1963. You know, where people are searching for the big W. Just average Joes looking for the big W that has the $300,000 in there, and it's just a big chase to see who can win in the end. I was looking at like a Sergio Leone, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You know, the $100,000 in the graveyard. Repo Man, 1985, Alex Cox. You know, looking for the Chevy Malibu. You know, that has the aliens in it. That's worth $25,000. You know, I looked at those three movies and said, well, what can I do at a no budget level that can be fun like that? But instead of having people chase a place where there's a treasure, what if my treasure was mobile and destructive? So I turned it into a guy who, you know, possesses these diamonds, so that it's not just people running to a place, it's people chasing a place, a person. You know, I wanted to make it interesting. So how can I do a big movie like that at a small level with a big cast, you know, 5 major characters and 16 major supporting players? It was very ambitious. I'm surprised we pulled it off. To this day, I don't know how the hell we did it.
Wow.
Determination. You said, you're a filmmaker. You're trying to get it done.
That's right. That's exciting.
Yeah. Now we got another really good question. Since you make films, you're good for your filmmaker. If there was a movie you could do, what would it be?
A lot of people ask me that, and my initial reaction is you know, I don't ever want to do a remake, but if I had the opportunity to totally ruin the Treasure of the Sierra Madre, I would do it. You know what I
mean? Treasure of the Sierra
Madre. Yeah. And do you think you can make a better Green Lantern movie? Since we love comics here on 6 Element, do you think you can make a better Green Lantern movie?
You know, without a doubt, because you know, basically, he's just a super cop.
Right.
Yes. He is. A space cop. He's a space cop. He's a space cop. Yeah, he's a space cop. Yes.
And to me, that's as simple as you can get in comic book lore. He's just a cop. He's got the cool ring. He can do cool stuff, but that means he just has to have cool crimes to fight.
Right.
You know, and that struck me as a kid. You know, he's just a cop. That's it. He's picked because he's a cop. And what's great, anybody can hold the ring. You know, anybody can be that cop.
Right.
Doesn't have to be a fighter pilot. And that's what always got me. Well, why didn't they just recruit a real cop? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
That's true. Yeah. Well, maybe they thought, like, you know, because it would have been cooler to have some guy just pulled into being a cop, because that wasn't what he wanted to do. He was a test pilot.
Now we have what, eight different Green Lanterns, right? So is there one that's a cop yet?
No.
I don't think there is. No.
Wow.
No, they all have issues. All of them. Yeah, all of them have issues. They all have underlining issues. Yeah. And
to me, you know, get rid of the sobby issue stuff and just get a hard-nosed cop. And it'll be a lot more fun. It'll be fresh. It'll be new. It'll be like,
that'd be something really cool. I'd be into that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I can do a better Green Lantern movie. Yeah.
I mean, story-wise and everything, you think you can come up with a better? And would you change the Green Lantern? Would you just? Do you think it would have been better to use Hal Jordan or one of the other Green Lanterns, or just get a whole new one altogether and
I
just
think
go
I
from there.
think I think Green Lantern is a character that is just the Green Lantern. I would re-envision a whole new persona, a whole new person.
Okay.
I don't think it has to be hell. I don't think it has to be anything in the current folklore. And I think that's maybe what it needs. Just, all right, that's the whole thing. The ring can be passed, you know? So there you go. Let's get,
It's
I'm a
attainable.
Native American be a Green Lantern, you know? Anybody can
Boom,
be a
that'd
Green
be
Lantern.
great. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, so
We
you
just
got a lot of
Native
potential,
American Ghost Rider.
right?
Just got a
Yeah,
Ghost
yeah. You
Rider.
got a name. Yeah, we just got a Native American Ghost Rider. That's true. That's true. And do you
Yeah.
think you can make a better Ghost Rider movie? We love comics here.
We were talking about Ghost Rider and Green Lantern being, you know, movies that should have been great, characters that are awesome, that movies were just horrible.
Well, you know, I think there. Okay, look at it this way. Somebody asked me a loaded question once about why don't I do a fan film?
Right.
I'm like, well, I don't want to take, not to offend anybody, but I don't want to take somebody else's copywritten or licensed material and try to make it my own. I don't think that's fair.
That's valid, yeah.
And I wouldn't want anybody doing that with my stuff.
Right.
So it's one of those things of, I mean, I think if you retain your rights in some aspect, you will retain the integrity of the story rather than allowing Hollywood just to create a product.
Right.
You see my point?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Sometimes, like, it's about the movies are about the current comic book movies are about the imagery and selling the action figures and selling the Happy Meals,
merchandising. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where they want their cash cow rather than the substance in the story, which I mean, I think you look at some books like Constantine, Swamp Thing. I mean, the stories are absolutely amazing, but
yes,
cinematically, I just don't think they've really been true to it. They've tried to Hollywood it.
No, and that's what they do with
we say that all the time.
All the time, right? Stick to the content.
Stick to the content. Don't throw Hollywood in there. Don't Hollywoodize it.
Yeah, don't
want that.
Like we were talking about the Punisher, and you know, speaking of Charlie Cox is officially going to be in the MCU. We got Kevin Feige announced. So Daredevil fans, Charlie Cox fans, he's coming to the MCU. And
we talked about it last week we were talking about that. Him coming in, and he's coming in, and we'll talk about it later. Right now we're interviewing Lance here. It's all about Lance, not Charlie Cox. It's all about Lance.
No, but
Lance is going to the MCU.
The Punisher stuff, or you know, Hollywoodizing these characters. And
they do it. The Punisher.
Yeah, John Bernthal thinks that MCU Punisher can't be another family-friendly quip guy. So he don't think that it would work in the MCU. But I mean, you know, I kind of agree with him. And it's like you didn't like Punisher because it wasn't Punisher-y enough.
Punisher enough.
Violent enough, right?
It wasn't. Punisher's
what do you
violent.
think, Lance, about the about Punisher?
You know what? I actually like the first season. I think they did it right.
We agreed on that.
I mean, I seen where it was going because I was interested in seeing, you know, who was going to be Jigsaw. You know, I was interested to see what direction the character would go. I mean, I love how they snatched enough from the comic books, you know, escaping from prison, you know, I mean, there were things there. And I collected the old Punisher and Punisher Dead Zone many years ago. So I seen those elements in this. They kind of went back to the content. And once again, I think it also goes down to casting. I think it was casted extremely well.
Yeah, Bernthal killed it, in my opinion.
Yeah, to me, he's Punisher. He's the Punisher.
For sure. I don't want to see nobody else. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it worked. I think the second season, I mean, the only reason why I watched Daredevil, to be perfectly honest with you, is because I heard the Punisher was going to be in it.
Okay.
I remember saying, all right, they're going to do they can't do the Punisher. All right. So I watched the first season of Daredevil and I was like, hey, this is pretty interesting. I mean, I grew up with dudes that were just Daredevil fanatics, you know.
I was never a big Daredevil.
Yeah, Daredevil was Daredevil was big in the 80s, bro.
Yeah,
Oh,
And the
yeah.
90s.
I was
Yeah, he
never
was big
big
in the
on it.
80s and the 90s.
I didn't get
Yes.
into Daredevil until Chip Zdarsky's run, the current run that he's
Right.
doing right now. It's phenomenal.
I
Which
see.
it
It never hooked me, and I thought, okay, whatever. But when the television show came up, I thought, okay, this is a little different. I mean, Vincent D'Onofrio, as Kingpin was solid. I mean, you can't.
He's gotta be
Yeah, I
that
agree
sold
with that.
me.
Yes. That
That
sold me
sold
too,
me.
yes.
100%.
People
And
like the Thomas Jane Punisher. People like Thomas Jane as Punisher. They
It
loved
was
him.
it was a
Punisher.
fun movie, but it's pure schlock.
Thank you. Yeah. I prefer, I like the other one that they did. Warzone.
I'm just putting it out there. I didn't say I'm just saying the fans love Thomas Jane as
I
Punisher.
mean, he's funny.
They had the short film they made and put it on YouTube. Was it Doing Laundry or whatever it's called? The Laundromat.
Yeah, the Laundromat. That was Adi
right.
Shankar, I think. Yeah.
Yes. People love Thomas Jane, bro. I don't listen. I just wanted to be violent like the Punisher. Now, Punisher Warzone, that was great. I thought that was a great movie. I thought that was a great Punisher.
That was a fun movie. I do remember seeing that in the movie theater going, this is way over the top,
Oh yeah.
But now we're talking when we realize it. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, somebody asked me a question the other day about did I see Shang-Chi,
yeah.
and I said,
yes.
I do remember Dolph Lundgren. I saw that at the movie theater.
Punisher, yeah, Dolph Lundgren. Oh God,
was Louis Gossett Jr. in
palm
that?
trees? Yes, palm trees in New York. Yeah, come on, man.
I remember that.
Yeah, palm trees in New York. Come on, let's. I will punish you.
Yeah, I do remember that, but I had to admit I haven't seen the last I think 12 Marvel movies. You know what I mean? I'm like
really? Any particular reason why?
Once you don't either.
I don't.
Yeah. I'm just asking why. Right? Everybody has the reason why. I mean, once he told us why he doesn't watch, but we want to know.
You know what? I think it's too repetitive. It's the same CGI character flying through the air, dodging bullets, tentacles, laser beams. The imagery doesn't strike me. I think it's redundant. I'm not seeing any it expand. I mean, that's why we have episodic television. We don't need to have that all through our cinematic experience. You don't need to go to your 24 screens multiplex just to have 20 screens showing a Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie. It's like, there are other movies out there. I guess I'm a little bitter at the idea of, Disney just trying to monopolize everything. Yeah. It's like, there's other things out there, and to keep pushing the same thing in other people's faces, now the people are conditioned. They're conditioned to want to see the same thing over and over again. And really, that's the kiss of death. You're not helping your entity or corporation if you're going to have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So, to me, also the MCU universe, the Marvel universe, even in the comic book version, was a little too outlandish for me. It was a little too schlocky for me versus DC.
And that's the opposite of the way. That's why I feel about DC. I always felt DC was too on the nose, superhero-y, like real. I don't know. And then I always felt Marvel was more real, dramatic, but then I hear people say the exact opposite. So I guess I don't know. I think it's kind of what you grew up on, what you started with is usually where I don't see any people that start with DC going to Marvel or vice versa. I started with Marvel. It's just what I picked up first. It wasn't but I was always a Batman fan. See, I'm a huge Batman fan. Half of my collection is Batman and the rest is Marvel, which mostly X-Men, everything mutants is what I like.
Right. And my initial collection is all Batman, from Batman to Detective to Legends of the Dark Knight to, Shadow of the Bat.
Do you still have any of your stuff? Batman?
Yeah, I still have those.
Wow.
Okay. Did you ever watch? Speaking of Batman,
I was gonna say, what's your top piece? Like your best book, your favorite book?
I think I really liked the Venom series of Legends of the Dark Knight.
Okay.
I think that that was the precursor to Bane.
Right.
So going back to whatever late 80s, early 90s, it was pretty radical. Yeah. How Batman can actually, because he wasn't strong enough, he gets addicted to a power drug and then has to detox.
Right.
You know, he's a druggie, and he knows that when he goes up against these guys, he's going to probably lose because he doesn't have the strength that drug gave him.
Yeah, Venom.
Right.
Yeah, Venom. He doesn't have the strength of the Venom.
Yeah.
Right.
So that one always stands out in my mind. And then also the in the detective version, we're going way back, the Moncala series, which was basically had Etrigan the demon in it. When I was exposed to Etrigan and the Constantine world through Batman, that was like an eye opener of, oh wow, there's a subcategory of DC here that I'm not seeing here, you know, which led me into Swamp Thing.
Right.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Yes.
You see where I'm going with this. So, you know, the Swamp Thing, the Constantine, the Etrigan, which is like, it's spiritual. It's folklore.
Yes, it is.
Right.
It's all folklore. Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's rooted a little bit better than, say, Doctor Strange, which to me, it's like all of a sudden he's got magic and he's doing all this weird or crazy. He can basically create his own world. That's too much for me. Whereas if you break it down to a Constantine,
he has no power. All Doctor Strange can do is summon, or rather, like, have a demon do something. But he has no power, but he can like channel their powers and stuff like that. So it is sort of Constantine, but I see what you mean. It's a little bit more, you know, he's got the big cape. It's very sure.
It's very dramatic versus a British smoker that looks like a detective that nobody likes.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. Constantine is a gay British chain smoker who walks around in a trench coat. I mean, and we talk about that a lot. Well, not a lot, but we talk about it on this channel too, how we don't make a character, you know, homosexual because it suits the time or the needs. Like Constantine's always been, you know, bisexual. He's always been a bisexual. And because he has, you know, when we see it, it's not a shock to us. It's not nothing new. It's something that we knew that he did. Like, it's just something that he's always done.
Do you remember the original concept design of him? Do you remember the original appearance of him in Swamp Thing and who he was based on?
Not who he was based on, but I was too young for. But I remember seeing like the original.
It's
like,
Sting. It's Sting from the
blonde
police.
hair with
it's Sting from the police. Yeah, it's the blonde.
And I thought that was kind of cool. I was like, all right, he's based off of Sting.
See, I was young then. I was like probably, I don't even think I was a teenager then when that came out. But we thought it was cool because to us that was the look of the time, like the way he looked. Right.
Yeah.
Like we just thought it was cool that he looked like that. Right. He looked just modern. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what we thought was cool. Like, it was cool to have a mohawk back then. It was cool to have a trench coat. Like, it was cool just the way he looked. He smoked all the time. Hey, everybody smoked. That's just what it was. But that's what Constantine is basically your character that they thought outside of the box. You know, and that's just what he is. He's had relationships with women and been with women, but his initial there was an issue where they talked about the person that he fell in love with and wanted to marry was a man. He fell in love with a man, and it didn't work out. Something happened. Constantine did something crazy. I never got to really find out the whole story because I was young. I only read a couple comics, and him and love of his life broke up. Yeah,
that's my little miniature Constantine. I have on my desk.
And Constantine, and he's one of the coolest. He's one of the coolest characters in the DC universe.
I believe so too. You know, and that's what led me once again. You know, that whole spiritual aspect, the whole idea of heaven and hell, all that stuff. You know, it worked out well. Yep.
Hellblazer.
Yep.
Original Sins.
Now, have you ever seen the movie Batman: The Alley?
Yep, that's old school. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Let me see. Batman, was it called Batman Dead End? And that's the one we fought the Predator?
The Predator, yes. We fought him in the alley, yes. And what'd you think of that? And do you think it could have been done better?
Oh, absolutely. It was just schlock and flash and flare. You know, it looked pretty. It did look extremely pretty.
Yes, it did.
I have that. Yeah, I have that.
Yeah.
I have that issue.
Get out.
A little 3-issue miniseries.
Yep.
Yeah, but DC and Dark Horse.
that was a big deal.
Yep. Yep.
But I watched the movie. I remember it shot on 35 millimeter film. I forget the name of the director of photography and the director, but it was fun and radical, just like John Fiorella's Grayson. Did you see that one?
Yeah, I saw it. Yes, I saw Grayson. Yes.
No, to me that was pretty cool. They got Robin going on in that. I'm like, all right,
I liked it. When I first saw it, it started kind of slow for me, but then as I got into it, I was like, yo, this is all right. Like, I watched the whole thing. I was thoroughly impressed after I saw it. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I actually had a film festival out here. We're going back probably a good 10, 12 years ago. And I actually asked him if he'd send me a DVD with the making of. And there's a making of, a whole 30-minute making of how he did it.
Get out.
Yeah, which is, I think you can go to his website. Geez, I don't know what it's called. John Fiorella. Untamed Cinema or something. I haven't looked this up in forever. And I think he actually has a link to the making of that Grayson, which he shot on 16 millimeter film. He used an anamorphically squeezed lens to make a widescreen. They did a lot of forced perspective. That big statue of Batman at his grave. That's a little tiny figure. And then the people it's movie magic. So those things struck me in the day when fan films were a little bit of a curiosity, because they weren't labeled as fan films. These people were like, well, I'm just doing a Batman movie, and I'm doing a Grayson movie, and then the studios which show up and they would give them a cease and desist. You're not supposed to be doing this. You can't do this. You don't own this. Right. Which to me, Batman's been around for 90 years?
80, 90 years, 85, 90 years.
So what's 75 years is public domain, so I don't know what's happening with this. They should be in the hands of the people right now.
Right. Well, Star Wars does it, but
about that the other day.
Yeah, Star Wars does it, but you have to have I think you have to send your movies to them or Lucas Studio, and they approve or disapprove the lore. You can make a Star Wars movie or short film, whatever you want to do. They don't care. But there's certain lore and certain things that you can and can't do. And they give you the guidelines, and you can even ask them beforehand, and they'll tell you, you can do this, but you can't do that. Yeah.
His criteria,
but it's all based on the lore, right? It's all based on the lore, The
lore has to match up. You can't make, this do that if it's not supposed to and stuff like that.
You can't,
it's fun stuff. Yeah, and I did keep an eye on those movies. There was a French one too. I think it's called Ashes to Ashes. Now, these French guys made a Batman movie that is like, it might be out there floating around. I don't remember how I saw it, but it is probably the most radical Batman movie fan film I had ever seen. I mean, Batman's a big scraggly beard. It looks like a demon. It's black and white with some red colorization. I mean, it is a hardcore. It is brutal.
Get out.
It's a completely.
What's the name of it?
I think it's called Ashes to Ashes. And it was made in France, so that's how you know. I don't know how I would even find that.
It's probably on YouTube.
Yeah,
that's what I'm about to see. Yeah,
because in the old days, I don't. Like on Vimeo. I think I found the guy through Vimeo.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah. It's almost like Color Splash, like Sin City type style.
Yeah.
It looks like Sin City.
Yeah, watch that later, and it's pretty radical. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting route to go.
Yeah, it does. It looks crazy. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, but there you go. I mean, you can take these, take a property like that and just get creative with it, do something different.
They in my mind have done something completely different. So, then again, you look at a lot of foreign films, they got their finger on the pulse of things that we Americans just aren't doing.
Right.
Which takes me back to like Sergio Leone, Western movies and Italians shot in Spain, and I knew there was something really cool about it, but why is it off kilt? Right. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's something a little bit different about this. I mean, I love me a good Western, and that's Americana, but when you see the foreign aspect of it and it works in a unique way, I'm like, well, there's hope for a lot of people out there. Cinema itself is your film school. You just look to see what's out there. Don't forget what's out there. Search for it, and you're going to be surprised. You're going to be thoroughly entertained, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What is your take on the current situation of film today? Movies being made, things. Do you think that there's not enough new ideas out there, or that they don't really?
You mean like how they keep doing remakes of everything, reboots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
do you think they should be more? Yeah, no, I'm saying, do you think they should be more creative? Do you think the creativity?
Absolutely. People want to hold on to the branding. People want the cash cow forever. And
is it a lack of creativity, or is it trying to get that money?
I think it's both. I think it's an absolute lack of creativity. I don't think they have the right people writing.
That's a fact.
Writers, in a sense, I'm going to say it. Writers need experience.
Yeah.
You shouldn't how to phrase this? You shouldn't have kids handling such big properties, in a sense. Dude, I'm not being ageist. I'm just saying
you're not wrong.
Experience speaks volumes.
Yeah, Lucasfilm with the kids, like they got this show coming up, The Acolyte, and they literally they made a statement like he said we purposely hired writers that were not Star Wars fans. Like why? Don't you want people that know about this stuff to write about it? You know what I mean? But there you go. Like they're young, they're new, they don't have experience. They don't even like the material. They don't even like the franchise.
Right.
What we get.
And now that's the other problem. Remember, we're talking about a franchise now going back to 1977.
Yeah.
And, you could only whip that so long. You can only wring that chamois dry, which I already think they did with the first
three. They need to go Old Republic. That's what they need to do.
Yeah.
Let's see the Old Republic stuff.
And even that, that a good concept, yeah. Or why don't we just go back 1,000 years and not have lightsabers? Let's check out real spirituality. But
right. Well, if you look at the original, like Dawn of the Jedi, Dark Horse comics, where before lightsabers, when the Jedi were Jedi, and they just used the Force, very spiritual, and they didn't lightsabers didn't come into the thing until the end of that whole saga right there. So there's a whole lineage. I mean, there's a whole history to Jedi. There's a whole thing that they could touch on that but they don't, because it's not marketable, maybe merchandise. They can't make the money off it. The toys, it's not recognizable. Who knows?
Well, when you look at
new, because
well, even if you look at Star Wars, Hidden Fortress, Akira Kurosawa.
Yeah.
I mean, and George Lucas blatantly admits it. He ripped that movie off 100%. So there's an interview on the disc where he says it. If it wasn't for this movie, I wouldn't have wrote Star Wars.
But he said, it's Westerns, it's samurai.
He did say, yes, Buck he said Rogers. That. He said a spaghetti Western.
You put all that together and made like Pulp
Fiction. And we don't mind. Listen, we don't care. It was good. We'll take it.
Yeah, and it having that old school like science fiction World War II look. I mean, even when you go look at the costumes,
like the Western Han Solo's got the low hanging pistol on the side. Yeah,
so that was all awesome, for its time.
Yeah,
and now we're today, and they're still trying to capitalize on that, and it just doesn't work.
No, you're right. Because you look at the prequels; they were very different than the originals. I mean, a whole different era.
Right. They were more science fiction. Right, they were more based like science fiction instead of that old spaghetti Western style.
And they were kids flicks. They were blatantly kids flicks. It 100%. wasn't made for the original Star Wars fans. Lucas said it. I'm going to make these for kids.
Yeah.
So they're kids movies.
Toys.
And then
toys.
The Force Awakens was a copy of the first movie. The Force Awakens was literally the first movie. They just, changed maybe the names and a little bit, but it was like scene for scene. Like that's exactly what the first movie did.
We had 3 Death Stars. I mean, you can't do something new.
Right.
I mean, I only saw that one in the theater, and I didn't see the rest because I'm like, you know what? I don't
waste your time.
Yeah, I would rather be making movies, trying to figure out how to be a starving artist rather than sit there and spend hard-earned cash on that.
Right.
Right.
So, yes, a lack of creativity today, or this complete mimicry of people like saying, "Oh, I really like what Tarantino's doing, so I want to do what Tarantino's doing." No. Only Tarantino can do what Tarantino does.
Right. Let Tarantino
Yes.
do it. Oh, hang
Yes.
on. Stu, watch the chat, the thing. Hold on, I gotta go.
All right. Go ahead, Lance. I mean, go ahead. You said only Tarantino can do what Tarantino does. I
Right.
agree.
And I'm saying that as not a Tarantino fan. I respect what he does, but it's like, okay, we can't keep rehashing. I mean, there was this moment in time, even going way back when I was doing film, everybody wanted to be Tarantino or Kevin Smith.
Yes. Yes, that's true.
And they're like, well, why don't you make your movie like this? And why don't, I'm like, dude, I don't want to do that. I don't want dick jokes, or I don't want, you know what I mean? That's not my
Thing. That's not your forte. Right. Yeah.
So,
that's why for me, J.J. Abrams was a breath of fresh air. I love J.J. Abrams movies. I love the stuff that he did. Because it was like you said, everybody was just copying somebody else, and just nobody came out original. Like it was just like when I started watching, like Lost was an Abrams project. It blew me away. It literally just blew me away. I was like, man, I like this. When he did the Star Trek movies and the Kelvin timeline, he put a spin on it it was just phenomenal. The whole spin with the whole, everything is pushed back 8 years based on their first 8-year mission. So everything got pushed back. So when they found Khan, Kirk and them didn't find him. Starfleet found him.
Okay.
But it was destined to happen. And that's what I like. I like things like that.
And to me, it goes back to, and it's said, people are like, well, you got your feature, it's just got distribution. It's looking for a place to land. Now, yes. There's problems out there that people are getting conditioned to say, look, I consider myself rated O for original. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in a sense, that could be a kiss of death, maybe. To certain distributors that aren't bold enough to say, well, let's try something new.
Right.
Rather than, well, let's make it like everything else because that's what people want to see. And I'm finding out that's really not what people want to see, especially if you're at a film festival and you have different genres and types of movies. Maybe none of them may be your flair, but you can see maybe 50% are rehashes. And then maybe the other 50% are something truly original. That's like, hey, that was pretty cool. I didn't get to see the same movie where the guy walks into a bar and beats everybody up. I've seen that with Chuck Norris 40 years ago and beyond. I don't need to keep seeing that. There's no substance to that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I always try to remind people, think about it. Think about what you're doing, especially if you're going to shoot it on HD or film because, well, film's going to last forever. We don't know what's going to happen to all these zeros and ones. Those are zeros and ones. Film is real. You can touch it, feel it, store it, save it forever. And that's another thing. I'm paranoid about HD. All these people have their movies stuck in drives. If those go away, you lose all your content. Me, I'm not going to lose it. I got it on film, man. It's going to be there forever.
Right.
A few years back, I read Europe was having a big explosion with cassette tapes, physical media, CDs, cassettes. And a lot of artists, independent artists, were recording their work on reel-to-reels. They were using tapes. And they were saying that it's easier to record that way. They can't lose it. And if they have to go back and redo it, it was just easier. They were pretty much like asking the question, why aren't we using this media, this format of media to record?
Right.
And like you said, it's just because everybody's stuck on the easiest way to do it, to a hard drive and a computer. I think cassettes were great. We should have never lost them. CDs are even better.
I even resisted going to CDs when they came out. Like I was still rocking tapes for years. I didn't start a CD collection until 2000.
I was probably one of the first to go into CDs. And now when I look back to the old CDs, how crappy they sound versus the newer remastered ones because they didn't have the technology down. You know, I have albums. My brother's got the big album collection. I think he has all mine. But even the film Hunting for Fish, shot on film, and I also recorded it on a 1/4-inch Nagra 3 analog tape, like Raiders of the Lost Ark was recorded on. You know what I mean? And the dynamics of the sound versus digital. I mean, DATs were coming out back then, and they were easier to handle. They had their own issues, but the analog sound, that deep resonant sound, had so much depth that I was really concerned about switching to digital sound sources, because I just don't think it sound as good. And it's easy to say, because I've heard the difference right next to each other. When you hear the difference, it's like, oh wow, I don't want to use that. You know, I'm going to use this.
Right.
But even now, I'm finding that, like with the film The Last Resort, shot on 8mm, black and white, Tri-X 7266, not one bit of sound was shot on location. That was all done after the fact. Wow. Because I wanted that sound to be so dynamic. You know what I mean? I wanted every breath, every the cicadas in the background. I wanted the crunching on the ground. All of that were canned effects. And
how do you do that? Were you recreating the sound effects, like in a sound room, or did you just record it while you were filming it and then use that recording? How does that work?
Right.
I didn't have. There was absolutely no recording units while we were filming on location. I had the script, and everybody knew what they needed to say, and that's all that mattered to me. The rest was imagery. And then I used this little cheapy microphone, and I used Audacity on a laptop, and we turned my basement into a sound studio. We shut off all the noise, and I had everybody. I looped it on the big screen on a TV so that they can, just like the old days, they can recite their dialogue. So I had them do it 3 or 4 times with different attitude to say, okay, all right, now that's going to be the baseline for all dialogue. So I laid all the dialogue down, and plus we had extra banter, stuff that wasn't scripted, because imagery was moving along a little bit differently than the script, which is going to happen. Opportunities present themselves artistically. Right. So then I went online and I searched for the highest quality canned effects I can find. Now, there's a lot of shams out there. You got to be very careful. There's a lot of people that says, I got a library of great sound. Actually, no, you don't, because I can hear your air conditioner in the background. You know what I mean? Right. I searched for probably weeks to get the right sound effects. And then I took them into Final Cut Pro 7, which is what I use, and I re-equalized them, and created old school 2-track left and right stereo, not surround sound, but just left and right stereo, your basic stereo track. So that, because what people don't understand is you can create the 5.1 sound, but after your movie is compressed to whatever, an MP4 or something, you're going to lose that. It's gone.
It's gone. Yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
So taking the art farther, I was like, no, there was a specific way I wanted the film to sound. And it was all remanufactured, versus the Unmentionables, which we recorded all that dialogue was done in the field. We had a newer TIAC digital recording unit there. That was a pretty nice one, I have to admit. And a newer microphone. It wasn't a Sennheiser 16. It was something else. I forget what it was. But going back old school, at that point, all I cared about was the ambience and the dialogue. So that way I can mix in ambient sound after the fact. It's a lost art. You don't see it a lot in a lot of movies today. You don't see it a lot in a lot of short films either. It's pretty stock, and I'm thinking you're really missing out if you don't explore the idea of sound mixing and creating a good sound design, because it makes all the difference in your imagery. People really get sucked in if you have really great sound.
Yeah.
So it's a process, but I take an old school approach to it, and I think it works out the best. But we can marry film with modern digital products today just fine. It's just you got to find the right one that suits what you're doing. It's not impossible. So this is also another scary thing for people out there that don't want to shoot film. It's like, no, you're going to be okay. And guess what? You might even be better, because you're going to take less takes. and you're going to have less to worry about in post-production. You know, if you let the videotape machine run, you let your video camera run, you know, if you're making a 10-minute short and you have 3 hours worth of footage, you did something wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're unprepared.
Yeah. Right. Very much so.
Yeah. So, you know, that's the approach that we take here at Warehouse 9. We want to keep it real. We want to keep it classical. And we want to just have people get sucked into it, just like Bob. All the color schemes, the depth of it, how it was created visually. It's just about, as indies guys, we need to step up and we need to do the best we possibly can, because otherwise there's no point in doing it. Don't do it half-assed.
Yeah, go big or go home.
Exactly.
No, he's got a point. He's got a point. When indie video games first started emerging on the scene, a lot of it was crap, and then a lot of guys started putting out very, very good products. I mean, better than AAA titles.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, Minecraft was an indie game at one point, and it's $1 billion thing. Then you got
and they just started stepping their games up. Yeah. I mean, once they did that, like you said, and they put out the best product they could actually put out, story-wise, game-wise, mechanics-wise, now the big industry has to say, you know, the big three, you know, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, they're like, look, and Nintendo was the first one to embrace it. When the other two big guys literally was, you know, they were literally still kind of looking down. When Nintendo embraced it, that's when they said, wait a minute, there's money. These are selling, these are million copy games.
Million.
They're outselling AAA titles. People would rather play an 8-bit game than a 3D game, right? You know, a 16-bit game, right? But they put out stuff that was better than stuff I grew up on.
Yeah.
You know, 8-bit and 16-bit.
My son's 17 and he's a gamer, but you'd be surprised. His favorite game is like, you know, Ocarina of Time. Like, he plays older games. Like, he plays all the new stuff too, but like, he is able to see the quality,
the value, the quality, yes, in those games,
like the fun in those old games. So that's cool now that this generation does have that. They can play something from all the you know, no matter what gen or whatever. But indie, you know, it's the same thing with any indie, you know, indie music,
indie film. Comics, yeah, you're right. Put out a quality product.
Right.
And you have to take pains for it. And, you know, you're faking it till you make it. It's flash in the pan. And to me, I don't feel comfortable taking that approach. And maybe that's where, in a sense, inadvertently rub people wrong. But if I don't feel that's true, you know, I can't do it.
Right.
Especially at this point in my life.
Right. That's the thing with Simon Cowell. When you go back and you watch the shows that he was on where he was judging talent, he said it. He was like, listen, somebody's got to be the filter. If it's not good, it's just not good. And I'm not going to sit there. I'm not going to sit there and pat you on the back. You know, even though it's bad, he says it's not good. I'm just not going to give it. And they would always ask him, well, who makes you the critical judge of all talent? And he said it best. He said, I'm not. He said, but if it's bad and I don't like it, I'm not going to sit there and pretend that I do. Or just be politically correct because, you know, they might not be able to take the fact of what I have to say.
Yeah.
Right. But I think that's an important aspect to it, because I've seen, you know, people put a lot of time and effort into like a movie, and then to see it bomb even at a film festival is heartbreaking. You know what I mean? Right. Because it's just like, and people covering their ears because the sound is peaking so bad. And it's like, well, who judged this? Who put this person on? I know I'm looking at the judges going, this should have never been accepted.
Why is it even up here?
Yeah. Because you just did a disservice to this filmmaker that showed up with their people.
Right. Well, it's like going back to American Idol and stuff, like they would show all the tryouts and stuff like that. You know, people that we wouldn't put you up there because it's not gonna help you. People aren't gonna, you know what I mean? You're gonna feel bad. People are gonna make you feel bad.
Well, you know, and having said that, I've had this conversation and I started to loosely post it now, even when it comes to film. The Last Resort, The Unmentionables, were on the table of two really big short film HD outlets, streaming outlets. And I had this conversation with a acquisition person. He was like, well, shot on film, it's HD, right? No, it's shot on film. But of
Right.
course, it's finished in an HD file. It's an HD file. It's deliverable ready. Now, when I say the word deliverable ready, there's a checklist that you have to go through to make sure your movie or film can be delivered to a major streaming network or streaming source like a Netflix, a CBS. You just can't make a movie and say, here it is, and it's going to work. No. Is it color corrected legally? Is the sound legal? Is it peaking anywhere? Is it stereo 5.1? There is a protocol that eliminates so many people because they don't even know it. They think they can just pick up their iPhone and go make a movie. Well, time out. You practice on that iPhone, but then you get a better camera when it comes down to it.
Right.
There's the argument the iPhone's good enough. The iPhone 13 can do everything. No, it cannot. No. It cannot.
The lens is that big. Come on.
Yeah, and the rig you have to hook up to it to make it up to speed. You might as well just go get you a better camera.
The lenses and all that. Yeah.
So, and the indie level, it's almost like, well, wait, I thought you distributors were a little bit smarter about what's going on than I realized, because this guy was like, well, we can't do anything with your movie if it's on film. No, dude, it was shot on film.
Yeah, right.
It's finished digitally.
Yeah.
What aren't you understanding? And I'm going to watch these movies and get back to you. I have analytics. I know who's watching my movies with the private screeners. The dude never even watched it, and I got a rejection like 10 minutes later. I'm like, it should have at least took you 30 minutes to watch 2 movies.
Yeah.
I'm not suitable to be on your channel. The guy didn't get it.
Because you shot in film.
Yeah. He thought I was going to string it up on a projector.
Yeah, right.
It's like, dude.
Idiot. Why does he have his job? Like, who?
Right.
Yeah.
So we're at a time now, too, where anybody who is anybody can call themselves a filmmaker by picking up a recordable device.
It's the same thing with music. It's like anybody can be a rapper now. You get your phone, and there you go. You make your beat, you record it, and now you're a rap star because you uploaded it to the internet and you got 1 million views. You didn't have to get an A&R. You didn't have to shop your demo. None of that did you have to go through any of the hardships that MCs or anybody in the music industry had to go through up until this point today. And that's why there's so much trash out there in all the media.
And we go back to having a deliverable ready product. The music isn't deliverable ready.
Right. The talent isn't even there. I don't even know, but I digress. Speaking of music, before we go, man, what do you think about Jay-Z's The Black Album?
I'm not a fan, really. I know what. He's doing his business right. He's a good business mogul and model, but I'm not. No, I can't get behind it.
Look at that smile.
What do you think about the Foo Fighters' new album? It's pretty good.
Oh, I love Foo Fighters.
It's great.
But now we have a running kind of joke. We had a disagreement because Stu said that the Black Album is whack, and I like it.
It's trash.
But we always ask everybody, and most people like it. Most people say Jay-Z. You ask people what's their favorite album, they say Jay-Z, the Black Album. It's not my favorite Jay-Z album by any means, but the quality, what he put into it, the different producers, like I guess watching the making of it gave me an appreciation for it that I probably wouldn't have had if I didn't see that part. But it's just a funny thing that we like to ask everybody.
Well, Lance always said, if you give the people dirty water,
you finally get somebody to agree with you, Stu.
They will, and having said that, I've been going back a little bit to Beastie Boys. I've been
love the Beastie Boys,
and just listening to the old school engineering with remanufacturing a sample rather than just taking a sample.
That's what I love about the Black Album. You had Rick Rubin on there.
Yeah, which is old school. Yeah. And I like that. I guess I'm like, well, I can really get behind the idea of a well-engineered song. The guy that recorded my sound for Hunting for Fish, he was an actual studio recorder engineer. His name's Jeff Archuleta. He passed away, but he worked at the power station and Electric Ladyland in New York. He mixed Puff Daddy's early stuff. I mean, he was, and when somebody, it was an introduction in the 90s to meet him. I'm like, well, here's a guy that knows microphones and analog. So when I said you're going to be recording on a 1/4-inch tape with a Sennheiser 416, his face lit up. He's like, really? A movie like that? I'm like, dude, this is how real Hollywood movies are made. They use this unit. Right. So it was interesting to have a sound engineer musically recording dialogue tracks, and we did to your earlier question, Reno, we actually did remanufacture all of our sound effects Foley wise, because we had the analog sound and the microphone. We needed it to match, so we were doing sound effects, face impacts, shooting the blank guns at different angles. We were we were doing car screeches. We did everything with that analog microphone and tape, a 1/4-inch tape recorder, so that when we mixed the movie, it all matched. It wasn't digital that was a little tinnier and a little on the higher spectrum. All our sound effects matched with our film. And a lot of people asked, well, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, we just made our own sound effects. If it's walking on the pavement, we had the microphone there. We did all that.
Right. That's what I was talking like getting you grab a bunch of leaves and crunch them by the microphone, and there's somebody walking on leaves. Like, they make the sounds artificially. But it's interesting to see I've seen some of those where they'll create a sound. You think you're looking at it, it's one thing, but he actually made it with something else that it's really cool. It's an interesting process. Did you guys get really creative with anything? Create something out of something crazy?
Yeah, like if someone messes their shorts, we were spitting out water into buckets. You know what I mean? We were doing really goofy stuff that was, every little thing, like picking up a phone. Yeah. All right, let's get the numbers. We did a lighter.
Right.
We put the microphone right next to the cigarette so you can hear that burn. We would do all these little things and integrate them as best as we could into the film, even though it could get lost with music and other what have you. But we knew the tracks were there. It was like the sound is just basic stereo. It's not surround, because in a sense, surround is awesome, but it could also be a little distracting to the audience, I think, at times. Sure. But yeah, that's part of the art. It's getting that imagery to match with that sound, and have people come up to you afterwards and go, hey man, were you out there recording the sound of the cicadas? No, not at all. That's canned effects. I just re-equalized it. I cleaned it up, and I put it in there. Wind blowing, all that stuff. It's important for your art. So, and like, as you know, when you see people skimp on it, it just sucks you right out. It doesn't matter if it's music, comic books, movies. If you can, there's times where we can't go that extra mile, and it's forgivable. But if you're not going to even attempt going that extra mile, why even bother do it?
Right. It's true.
Yeah. What are you doing? Go do something else. Yeah. Yeah. Because if it's not fun to you, if you're trying to skip over parts, like, it's not your field.
Nope.
But Stu, anything else you wanted to ask Lance?
No. Lance is real cool.
Phenomenal.
All night. If I keep going, we're gonna be here till midnight.
No, it's Lance
is very interesting, man, and I like, he's very informative. We'll be here till midnight if I keep asking Lance questions.
What do you see? What's next happening with ASAP UK and Lance?
They got this big book of Bob and they're rocking it. Paul's been doing a great job. I'm glad to have met him. This was that last link, to get the big book of Bob to an actual book, a hardcover, with a nice ribbon, a paperback, something physical in your hand, like a film. It's analog now. Now it's analog. You got a book in your hands if you want it. And to me, that was the final journey for our initial Bob push. And once again, we have 4 other books written. It's just a matter of getting back into production.
Nice.
And they're doing great things over there at ASAP. Once again, indie, some really radical stuff.
Yeah.
points of villainy, points of virtue, perspectives.
We're going to talk about dog eaters here. I think Wednesday, we're going to have them on. So yeah, a couple of people from ASAP are going to come talk to us on our Wednesday, on our indie hip hop and comic shows and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a lot of good stuff coming out of ASAP.
A lot of really cool stuff. You're gonna have a lot of fun. You're gonna have a lot of fun talking with Paul and Malcolm Wong about Dog Eaters. Dog Eaters is fun.
Dog Eaters is really cool. I mean, the artwork, I love it. It's like anime. It's
awesome. It's a fun story. You're gonna have a really good interview with Malcolm Wong. He's a cool guy.
It's like one of my favorite genres too. Is the post-apocalyptic, Mad Max type. Like, yeah, it's awesome. So that's
yep. Fun stuff with ASAP. So. Sure. We expect a lot of good things out of ASAP. I mean, Malcolm being kind of the old dudes, we don't lean on him hard enough, but we're cool. He's doing a great job, Nice. So this is a great journey, and I'm glad to be here and meet the both of you, talk about it.
Sure.
Pleasure was all ours, man.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thank you very much.
Back. Yeah, do us a favor. Come back.
You. Yeah,
I'll come back anytime, man. We can talk movies, and I know what's up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sounds good.
We're gonna hold you to that.
All right. Well, I'll one up you right now. I'll send both of you when we get off the private links to The Last Resort and The Unmentionables. You get to see what's touring the festival circuit and kicking ass. We've won a lot of awards.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Yeah, we'll have you back on. We'll talk about it. We'll chop it up.
For sure.
Yeah. It's cool. And this Wednesday we're finally playing Denver. We're finally playing my hometown. Nice. 2 years later, we finally got accepted in my hometown. So
get up,
bring it back. Yeah.
Hey, man, as long as you get it, that's all that matters.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun.
Cool. All right. All right. Hang out a second. We're gonna outro out, and then we'll chop it up in a second. But this is hip hop and comics, everybody. I am Reno Noir. This is my co-host Stu Dog, and this was Lance Lucero, the creator of Bob, the non-union psychic, the Big Book of Bob. Phenomenal comic book from ASAP. Go check it out. It's definitely getting a super dope rating from us. And
get your tagged and slabbed. Yeah, get your copy tagged and slabbed.
That's right.
I'm gonna get mine. I'm getting mine tagged and slabbed.
Yes, sir. And come back. We'll see you back here Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace.